day after the wedding, my wife pulled out a rules list. I smiled and said, "Rule 1. This marriage is over." Looking back now, I should have seen it coming during those 10 days in Bali, but love makes you blind to manipulation when it's wrapped in white lace and promises. I'm Connor, 32, software architect at a Seattle tech firm, the kind of guy who believes in spreadsheets, transparency, and building something real with someone who actually wants the same future. I returned from what should have been the honeymoon of a lifetime to find Victoria, my wife of exactly 48 hours, conducting what I can only describe as a military debriefing with women I'd never met, their faces glowing on her laptop screen like some kind of digital tribunal. The strategic relationship framework enters implementation phase tomorrow, she announced to her screen, not realizing I'd walked through the door early. I stood there in our living room, jet-lagged and confused, watching my bride of 2 days discuss optimization targets and compliance metrics like she was launching a hostile corporate takeover instead of starting a marriage. During our honeymoon, I'd noticed her disappearing for hours, claiming exhaustion from the flight, the heat, the time difference, always with her laptop bag clutched tight against her designer resort wear. I'd find her in the business center at 2 a.m., typing furiously, her face illuminated by blue screen light and something that looked disturbingly like calculation. "Just catching up on some emails, babe," she'd say with that practiced smile, the one I'd thought was genuine affection but now recognized as rehearsed performance. I didn't push it because I trusted her, believed in giving space, thought I'd married someone who valued independence as much as partnership. The red flags I'd ignored started assembling themselves into a pattern I couldn't unsee. 3 months into dating, she'd started taking notes during our conversations, which she'd explained away as journaling about our relationship journey. 6 months in, she'd ask oddly specific questions about my daily routines, my decision-making processes, my relationship with my family, all framed as deep emotional connection but now feeling like intelligence gathering. By our engagement, she knew my passwords, my schedule, my vulnerabilities, every piece of information someone would need to systematically dismantle a person's autonomy. I discovered the spreadsheet by accident, reaching for her laptop to check flight details and finding a document titled Optimization Targets, with my name at the top, subsections labeled Financial Control Timeline, Social Isolation Benchmarks, and Emotional Dependency Metrics. Each entry was dated, categorized, color-coded by priority level, complete with percentage calculations of what she called my compliance readiness. My hands shook reading entries like, subject demonstrates 87% baseline agreeability, proceed to phase alpha deployment post-wedding, and successful conditioning during months 4 to 8 increased malleability by 23%. This wasn't a wife documenting our relationship, this was a predator tracking prey. "Connor, you're home early," Victoria's voice snapped me back to reality, her laptop now closed, her smile now activated like a switch being flipped. "The book club's coming over tomorrow for brunch. I know it's short notice, but they're so excited to finally meet my husband properly." Book club. The term she'd used for the past year to explain her twice-weekly evening disappearances, her weekend strategy sessions, her constant phone calls that would abruptly end when I entered the room. I'd met them briefly at the wedding, 6 women who'd hugged Victoria like co-conspirators rather than friends, who'd studied me with assessment rather than warmth. All of them? Tomorrow? We just got back. I thought we'd have some time to ourselves. My voice sounded normal, but my mind was racing through everything I'd just discovered. "It's important, Connor. They're my accountability partners. We have matters to discuss regarding our marriage structure moving forward." Her tone shifted, became firmer, the sweetness evaporating. Accountability partners. Marriage structure. The corporate terminology sent ice through my veins. That night, I couldn't sleep. Victoria passed out immediately, probably exhausted from whatever strategic planning she'd been conducting while I thought we were celebrating our marriage. I sat in my home office and went through every file on her laptop using passwords she didn't know I'd documented. The folder labeled Project Alpha contained 3 years of my life, dissected and analyzed like a lab specimen. Screenshots of my text messages. Records of my spending patterns. Psychological assessments based on conversations she'd secretly recorded. Most chilling was the video file dated 1 week before our wedding, Victoria and her book club, discussing implementation day. Phase Alpha deployment begins the day we return from Bali, Victoria's recorded voice explained to nodding heads. Subject shows 87% compliance readiness based on pre-wedding conditioning metrics. Subject: not husband. Not Connor. I was a project, an acquisition, a target. I copied everything to an encrypted drive, documenting evidence of what I recognized as psychological warfare disguised as marriage. The 6 women arrived at exactly 10 a.m., each carrying matching black leather portfolios embossed with gold lettering reading Marital Excellence Protocol. Ashley led them in, followed by Jessica, the corporate attorney, Rachel, Stephanie, Jennifer, and Victoria's sister Danielle, all dressed like they were attending a Fortune 500 board meeting. They arranged themselves around my dining table with practiced coordination, opening identical documents that looked disturbingly official. Connor, what we're about to share represents 5 years of collaborative development, Ashley began, her tone professional and cold. The Marital Excellence Protocol has been refined across multiple relationships with remarkable success rates in achieving optimal partnership dynamics. I sat down, my smartwatch already recording, phone live streaming to secure cloud storage. Jessica slid a 47-page document across the table, complete with numbered sections and appendices. This covers all aspects of modern partnership optimization through systematic implementation of proven strategies. The table of contents made my blood run cold. Digital transparency requirements, financial submission protocols, social interaction guidelines, emotional availability assessments, privilege point system, consequence implementation framework. Rachel pulled out a presentation clicker, and a projector illuminated my wall with the first slide of a 200-slide PowerPoint. The requirements were insane: surrender all passwords for email, social media, banking, work systems, even my password manager master password. Install GPS tracking on my vehicle, enable constant location sharing, text check-ins every 2 hours. The financial submission protocols are particularly elegant, Jessica announced, clicking to the next section. I needed written permission for any purchase exceeding $25. My paycheck would go into an account Victoria controlled, with me receiving a weekly allowance based on my compliance score. All financial decisions required unanimous approval from their advisory board. We've developed an algorithm that analyzes your emotional state for concerning patterns, Jennifer added, like excessive independence, inappropriate emotional attachments, or resistance to framework implementation. I interrupted, voice-controlled. You said refined across multiple relationships. Meaning you've implemented this with your own husbands. 6 heads nodded in synchronization. My husband Marcus has been on the protocol for 3 years, Ashley beamed. The transformation has been remarkable. Would you like to see the before and after assessments? She pulled out psychological evaluation reports. Marcus 1.0, independent, opinionated, exhibited masculine toxicity through desire for autonomy. Marcus 2.0, cooperative, agreeable, demonstrates healthy submission to partnership leadership. She described breaking down a human personality like it was a product relaunch. Rachel showed photos on her phone. This is David before, confident, assertive, had his own hobbies. And after, notice the softer expression, more agreeable posture, positioning himself behind me in photos indicating proper hierarchy recognition. The man had aged 10 years, eyes hollow, smile forced. Victoria pulled out a laminated chart. The privilege point system is brilliant. You start each week with 50 baseline points. Good behavior earns points, infractions result in deductions. Your total determines your privilege level, everything from movement restrictions to allowance amounts. Jennifer displayed the infraction list like a criminal code. Displaying independent thought during discussions, minus 10 points. Maintaining unapproved external relationships, minus 15 points, and mandatory counseling. Questioning protocol validity, minus 25 points, and weekend restriction. This is insane, I said. You're describing psychological abuse masquerading as relationship optimization. Ashley's expression hardened. See, this is exactly the toxic masculine resistance we anticipated. Jennifer, pull up the PowerPoint on dismantling patriarchal autonomy. For 45 minutes, I watched them present a masterclass in gaslighting backed by cherry-picked studies and fabricated statistics. Traditional male independence is a defense mechanism rooted in patriarchal conditioning, one slide proclaimed. They showed videos of their husbands giving testimonials that looked like hostage statements. The protocol saved our marriage, Marcus said on screen, eyes dead. I understand now that true partnership means submitting to my wife's vision for our life together. These transformations typically show initial resistance for 4 to 6 weeks, growing acceptance around month 3, full integration by month 6, Jessica explained. The key is unwavering implementation of consequences for non-compliance. Danielle pulled out another document detailing escalating punishments, starting with social isolation and restricted communication, moving through financial penalties and mandatory therapy, culminating in coordinated social destruction, career sabotage, and legal action. Most men never reach the severe consequence level, Ashley explained with chilling casualness. Once they understand the alternative, they choose compliance. They had built an entire infrastructure of control, manipulation, and abuse, calling it progress. I notice you haven't said much, Connor, Victoria observed, tone shifting to something dangerous. Are you processing or experiencing resistance? I met her eyes, seeing a stranger. I'm processing how 6 allegedly intelligent women convinced themselves that systematic abuse is relationship optimization. The room went silent, 6 faces hardening into identical expressions of cold fury, and I realized I'd just activated whatever escalation protocol they had prepared for this exact moment. Victoria's sister Danielle stood up so fast her chair scraped against my floor, face flushed with rage. You don't get to call us abusive. We're trying to help you become a better partner, but clearly you're too steeped in toxic masculinity to recognize evolution. I stayed seated, calm, my smartwatch capturing everything. Evolution? You've built a systematic method to destroy autonomy and call it progress. Ashley pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. This is exactly why we have contingency protocols. Severe resistance detected, initiate phase beta immediately. Jessica the attorney smiled without warmth. Phase beta is what happens when subjects refuse voluntary compliance. We've prepared extensively for this scenario. She pulled out her tablet, swiping through legal documents. We have a comprehensive response framework. Within the next hour, unless you agree to full protocol implementation, we'll publish carefully crafted statements across all social platforms about your abusive behavior, psychological instability, betrayal of our marriage. Victoria nodded, expression cold and calculated. I've already drafted the posts. Screenshots of fake text conversations where you're verbally abusive, edited photos that make you look violent, testimonials from friends about concerning behavior. By tonight, everyone you know will see you as a monster. You're threatening to destroy my reputation because I won't submit to your control? I kept my voice level. This is extortion. Its consequences, Rachel corrected, tone like a teacher addressing a slow student. Your refusal to embrace the protocol is an action. We're implementing natural consequences. Stephanie leaned forward, marketing executive persona activated. We control the narrative. 6 voices to your 1. We have documentation, witnesses, coordinated strategy. Within 48 hours, we can make you unemployable, friendless, isolated. Or you choose cooperation. I pulled out my phone and 6 women tensed. What are you doing? Victoria demanded. Calling my attorney. I need legal representation for whatever fresh hell you're planning. Jennifer laughed. By all means. We've already prepared restraining order paperwork claiming you've become violent and threatening. Ashley's husband is a judge. We can have it expedited. You'll be removed from your own home by end of day. Community property laws are fascinating, Jennifer added smugly. With the right narrative about financial abuse, you controlling all money, forcing me to depend on you, I can claim half of everything. Victoria's smile was triumphant. We've thought of everything. Every possible resistance. We've been planning this for 3 years. You've been planning nothing because you thought we were in love. I stood up, and they tensed like I might become violent, phones ready to record. Instead, I walked to my office and returned with my laptop. Before you make that decision, maybe you should see what I discovered last night. I hit play on the video file from 1 week before our wedding, Victoria and her book club discussing implementation day, compliance metrics, treating me like a subject. Their faces went pale watching themselves reveal the conspiracy. That's illegal recording, Jessica sputtered. Washington is two-party consent. Funny thing, it doesn't apply when recording in your own home. I have every right to record here, especially when I'm one of the parties present. I pulled up the next file, the spreadsheet, optimization targets, Victoria's 3-year documentation of treating me like an experiment. Then her journal detailing calculated deception, manufactured moments, strategic manipulation. You've documented everything. Every manipulation tactic, every strategic decision, every piece of psychological abuse. You created a comprehensive evidence trail of premeditated fraud. I showed financial records of Victoria funneling money from our joint account to her hidden, divorce war chest. Screenshots of her researching my ex, creating fake dating profiles to catfish me into thinking she was cheating. You sabotaged my previous relationship to isolate me. Manufactured an entire breakup so I'd be vulnerable when you swooped in. Jennifer had gone still, legal mind racing through implications. Where did you get those files? From Victoria's laptop. The one containing 3 years of documented fraud, conspiracy to commit multiple crimes, evidence of a criminal enterprise spanning 8 states affecting 47 men. I pulled up the server I'd found, comprehensive database tracking dozens of men across multiple states, vulnerability assessments, manipulation timelines, success metrics, training videos celebrating breaking men's spirits. You've been running an organized criminal operation. Insurance fraud, identity theft, financial exploitation, conspiracy across state lines. That makes this federal, ladies. FBI territory. Ashley's phone clattered on the table. You're bluffing. Am I? I showed the copied files, encrypted backups, evidence I'd been uploading since 2 a.m. I have everything. Every case file, every training video, every financial transaction. Your entire operation, documented and backed up in multiple secure locations. Victoria's mask cracked completely. Connor, please. We can work this out. I made mistakes. We can fix this. Think about our marriage, our future. Our marriage? We have a fraud scheme where I'm the victim and you're the con artist. My future involves annulment, restraining orders, and criminal prosecution. I pulled up another file. Let's talk about the anti-anxiety medication you've been putting in my coffee for 6 months. The keyloggers installed on my devices. The GPS trackers hidden in my car. That's criminal poisoning, illegal surveillance, stalking. I watched realization dawn. They'd been so confident, never considering I might be smarter, more prepared, more strategic. Here's what's going to happen. You're leaving my house. Packing Victoria's belongings today. Then waiting while I consult my attorney about how many criminal charges to file and how much evidence to turn over to federal authorities. They left within the hour, 6 women who'd walked in like conquerors departing like criminals fleeing a crime scene. I spent Sunday photographing everything they'd left behind, portfolios, printed protocols, laminated charts, creating a comprehensive evidence trail. But it was Victoria's personal journal that revealed the true depth of her calculated deception. 3 years of entries detailing every manipulation, every strategic decision, every moment she'd studied me like a lab rat. Month 2, subject demonstrates strong attachment to spontaneity. Must manufacture random encounters that feel organic while maintaining control. She'd orchestrated our chance coffee shop meeting, researched my routine for 3 weeks, positioned herself perfectly to seem like serendipity. Month 5, successfully identified primary vulnerability, fear of abandonment from childhood divorce. Implement periodic withdrawal to activate anxiety response, followed by reassurance to create dependency cycle. Every time she'd pulled away claiming she needed space, only to return with renewed affection, it was tactical, training me to fear losing her. Month 8. Subject's ex-girlfriend remains potential threat. Initiate digital interference operation. Screenshots documenting how she'd created fake dating profiles, catfished me into thinking my ex was cheating. My ex had been innocent, and I'd destroyed a real relationship based on Victoria's manufactured lies. Month 28. Begins psychological conditioning for post-wedding compliance. Low-level benzodiazepines to reduce resistance response and increase agreeability. I found receipts for anti-anxiety medication, dosage calculations. She'd been drugging my coffee for 6 months, literally altering my brain chemistry to make me more malleable. Month 32. Keylogger installation successful. Subject's digital communications now fully monitored. Password documentation complete. Every password I'd entered, she'd captured. Every email, message, private conversation, she'd read it all. The keyloggers were sophisticated, hidden deep in my system software. Month 34. GPS tracking devices installed. Location monitoring active. I found them, tiny trackers hidden in my car's undercarriage, sewn into my gym bag lining, embedded in my laptop case. She tracked my every movement for months. Month 35. Home security camera exploitation complete. Subject believes cameras are offline during privacy moments, unaware of secondary feed capturing all domestic behavior. My security cameras that showed offline when I wanted privacy, she'd hacked them, created hidden feeds recording everything. But her journal revealed something chilling. Derek, her previous victim. Derek, trial subject alpha initial protocol implementation failed due to rush timeline. Subject resisted and initiated divorce before full framework establishment. Lessons learned, longer courtship required, deeper emotional investment necessary, comprehensive isolation protocols essential. I wasn't her first victim, I was her second attempt, refined based on previous failure. She'd targeted Derek for his wealth, pushed too hard, and he escaped. Derek's escape taught me patience. Connor will be different. 3 years of conditioning. By wedding day, he'll be so invested, so isolated, so psychologically prepared that protocol acceptance will feel inevitable. I found her psychological evaluation, the one she'd hidden throughout our relationship. Patient demonstrates persistent pattern of interpersonal exploitation, lack of empathy, grandiose sense of self-importance. Narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial traits. Recommendation: intensive therapy. Prognosis guarded. She wasn't capable of love. Every "I love you" had been calculated performance. Every tender moment had been strategic manipulation. My phone buzzed with a text from my attorney Marcus Chin. Reviewed the files. Most comprehensive fraud evidence I've seen in 20 years. Meet first thing Monday. Bring everything. Around 8 p.m., Victoria started calling from blocked numbers, unknown numbers, through social media. Finally an email. Connor, please. We need to talk. You're blowing this out of proportion. We can fix this if you'll listen. I love you. Please don't destroy what we have over a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Still trying to gaslight me into believing systematic abuse was a communication problem. I forwarded it to my attorney. Exhibit 47, continued manipulation attempts. My best friend Jake called. Dude, Victoria just called crying, saying you've had some kind of mental breakdown, making insane accusations. She sounds genuinely worried. What's going on? Phase Beta in action, the reputation destruction campaign. Jake, did she mention specifics? Something about you claiming she's part of a conspiracy, that she drugged you, that she and her friends run a criminal operation. Connor, this sounds like paranoid delusions. Have you been sleeping? Jake, come over. I have evidence that will explain everything. 1 hour. Victoria said you might be dangerous, that you've been acting erratic. We've been friends 15 years. You know me. When have I ever been violent? Please, just look at the evidence. If you think I'm delusional after, I'll check into a hospital tonight. Long pause. 1 hour. But I'm bringing someone for safety. Jake arrived with his girlfriend Sarah, both looking wary. I showed them everything: videos, journal entries, financial records, GPS trackers from my car. Their expressions changed from skepticism to horror. Holy shit, Jake said, face pale. She's actually insane. You need to go to the police right now. Monday morning. Meeting my attorney first, then filing criminal complaints and seeking emergency annulment. Sarah scrolled through Victoria's journal. This entry about your ex-girlfriend, she destroyed a real relationship. And this drugging, this is attempted poisoning. This is violent crime. My phone exploded with notifications. Victoria was executing her social media campaign. Instagram post: I never thought I'd write this, but I'm scared for my safety. My husband Connor has become violent and controlling, accusing me of impossible things, trying to isolate me. I'm staying somewhere safe. Please keep me in your thoughts. Photos of herself crying, looking terrified, playing the abused wife perfectly. Hundreds of comments, sympathy, outrage directed at me, offers of help, suggestions she file police reports. Let her post, I said, screenshotting everything. Every lie becomes additional evidence of fraud and defamation. She's creating the evidence trail that will destroy her in court. Monday morning, I walked into attorney Marcus Chen's office carrying 3 laptops, 2 external drives, and a folder thick with evidence. Marcus had handled complex cases for 20 years, but even he looked stunned as I laid out Victoria's operation. You're telling me she's been running this scheme across 8 states with 47 documented victims? I pulled up the server showing the comprehensive database Victoria's group had created. Each entry contained detailed profiles, photos, psychological assessments, financial records, manipulation timelines, success metrics. Nevada cluster, 6 men, all tech industry. Arizona has 8, mostly corporate executives. California has 12, finance to entertainment workers. Marcus scrolled through files, expression darkening. This is RICO territory. Racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations. They've created an interstate criminal enterprise. He clicked on Michael Patterson, Phoenix, Arizona, status, fully integrated. 3-year timeline of systematic manipulation, financial exploitation totaling $340,000, current status living under complete control. They have success metrics, I pointed out. Financial extraction amounts, compliance scores, isolation effectiveness ratings. They've turned psychological abuse into a measurable business model. Their training materials showed workshops teaching manipulation techniques, celebrating achievements. Ashley presenting her husband Marcus as a case study, displaying before and after psychological assessments like a product demonstration. The legacy project is particularly disturbing, I said, opening another folder. They're publishing their methods as a mainstream relationship book? Reclaiming Power, A Woman's Guide to Restructuring Modern Partnership. It's their abuse manual marketed as self-help. Marcus took notes, legal mind processing implications. Drugging is attempted poisoning, a felony. Keyloggers constitute illegal wiretapping. GPS tracking is stalking. Financial fraud across state lines invokes federal jurisdiction. This legacy project, conspiracy to promote criminal activity. There's more, I said, showing insurance fraud schemes. They coach each other on faking injuries. Here's staged accidents, fabricated medical reports, coordinated testimony. Rachel extracted $85,000 from her husband's auto insurance claiming permanent injury. And the consultation services? Marcus asked. They're selling customized manipulation plans for $5,000 each. 23 clients in 2 years. They provide personality assessments, vulnerability mapping, manipulation timelines, ongoing coaching. Email exchanges showed Victoria advising clients on drugging schedules, surveillance techniques, psychological pressure tactics. Marcus leaned back. This is the most comprehensive criminal conspiracy I've encountered. Dozens of felonies, federal crimes, interstate fraud, organized criminal enterprise. The evidence is overwhelming. What's our next move? Emergency annulment based on fraud. Restraining orders against Victoria and co-conspirators. I'm contacting the FBI immediately. This crosses state lines with enough financial fraud to trigger federal investigation. He paused. Connor, prepare yourself. Victoria's launched her reputation attack. When we go public, it gets worse before better. She'll fight back hard. Let her fight, I said. I have 3 years of documented evidence. She has lies. Truth wins in court. Marcus started drafting while I showed more evidence. Victoria's messages specifically targeting me because my tech industry connections and family wealth made me a premium acquisition. Calculations of my net worth, extraction projections, contingency plans for resistance. This is premeditated fraud at levels I've rarely seen, Marcus said. 3 years infiltrating your life with explicit intention of exploitation. This isn't a relationship gone bad, this is organized crime. My phone buzzed with Victoria using her friend's phone. Connor, please stop this insanity. I'm willing to forget everything if you just come home. This is our marriage. Don't throw it away over paranoid conspiracy theories. Marcus read over my shoulder. Document everything. Every contact attempt becomes evidence of continued manipulation and harassment. We spent 4 hours preparing filings. Annulment petition detailed fraud, criminal complaints outlined felonies, restraining order documented ongoing harassment. Marcus prepared a comprehensive FBI report with server access, financial records, victim database. I'm recommending we contact other victims, Marcus said. If half file complaints, Victoria and her group face decades in prison. Do it, I said. These men deserve to know they can escape. By 2 p.m., we'd filed emergency annulment, obtained temporary restraining orders, submitted criminal complaints to local police and FBI. Marcus contacted documentary filmmaker Rebecca Torres, who specialized in exposing criminal conspiracies. The scope means this becomes public eventually, Marcus explained. Better to control the narrative. Rebecca's won awards for investigative work. She could help expose this properly. I thought about 47 men still trapped, feeling isolated and helpless. Set up the meeting. If my story helps one person escape, it's worth it. That evening, I met Rebecca at a coffee shop. She'd built her career exposing institutional corruption. I showed her evidence and her eyes widened. Connor, this is a national story. An organized network systematically targeting men across multiple states using sophisticated psychological warfare. This could be one of the most significant domestic abuse exposés in years. When can you start filming? Tonight. I want to document everything before Victoria's group destroys evidence or coordinates defense. By 9 p.m., I was in front of Rebecca's camera telling my story while her team documented everything. We filmed for 6 hours covering honeymoon discovery to confrontation to evidence uncovered. Rebecca emphasized on camera, what Victoria did isn't just morally wrong, it's criminally wrong. She's part of an organization that has systematically targeted dozens of men. Next morning, Marcus called. FBI is opening formal investigation into interstate fraud, organized criminal conspiracy, wire fraud related to consultation services. They want to interview you this afternoon. The annulment? Judge granted it this morning based on fraud. Your marriage is legally void as of 10 a.m. Victoria is now a criminal defendant in multiple jurisdictions. Relief washed over me. 48 hours after discovering truth, I was legally free. Restraining orders approved. Victoria and 6 co-conspirators cannot contact you, come within 500 feet, or mention you on social media. Violation means immediate arrest. Best news came that afternoon. We've heard from 8 victims. 8 men ready to file complaints, ready to testify. 3 have evidence even more damning than yours: years of documented abuse, financial records showing hundreds of thousands in theft, evidence of Victoria's group coaching wives on falsifying domestic violence claims. The conspiracy was unraveling faster than Victoria could contain it. The nuclear option came Saturday, Exactly 1 week after my honeymoon return. Victoria's parents were celebrating their 40th anniversary with a massive party at a country club, 60-plus guests including extended family, business associates, social connections from their entire community. They'd sent me the invitation months ago, back when I was supposed to be their beloved son-in-law. Now I was about to become their worst nightmare. I'd coordinated with Marcus and Rebecca to turn the anniversary party into a comprehensive exposure event. 8 victimized husbands agreed to confront their wives simultaneously, creating synchronized revelation across multiple households. Marcus had prepared legal documentation for each man, restraining orders, annulment papers, fraud charges ready for immediate filing. This is going to detonate like a nuclear bomb, Marcus warned. Victoria's entire social structure will collapse in real time. I walked into the country club ballroom where champagne flowed and classical music played, looking exactly like the successful son-in-law they expected. Victoria spotted me immediately, her face cycling through shock, panic, desperate calculation. She moved to intercept me, but I walked straight past her to the AV booth where Rebecca's team had positioned themselves. "Connor, what are you doing?" Victoria hissed, grabbing my arm. "You can't be here. The restraining order expires at midnight," I said, checking my watch. "It's 7:47. I have 2 hours and 13 minutes. Her mother approached, all smiles and ignorance. "Connor, we're so glad you could make it. Where's Victoria?" "Actually, Mrs. Harrison, I have something important to share with everyone. A special presentation about Victoria and her friends." I signaled Rebecca's team, who activated the massive projection screen. Victoria went pale as her optimization targets spreadsheet filled the screen, my name at the top, subsections labeled Financial Control Timeline and Emotional Dependency Metrics. "What is this?" her father demanded. "This is what your daughter has been doing for 3 years, I said, voice carrying across the increasingly silent ballroom. "Systematically manipulating and exploiting me as part of an organized criminal conspiracy." I clicked to the next slide, Victoria's journal entries detailing calculated deception, manufactured moments, strategic manipulation. Her mother read aloud, voice shaking. "Subject demonstrates 87% compliance readiness. Proceed to phase alpha deployment." "Subject?" her father repeated. "You called him subject?" Victoria tried to grab the remote, but security guards blocked her. "Connor, please, this is insane. You're having a breakdown." I clicked to the video from 1 week before our wedding, Victoria and her co-conspirators discussing implementation day. The ballroom filled with their voices planning my psychological subjugation. Ashley's husband Marcus stood up, face gray. "What the hell is this, Ashley?" Across the room, David confronted Rachel. "You've been doing this to me? For years." I showed the comprehensive database tracking 47 men across 8 states, each profile containing vulnerability assessments and manipulation timelines. Victoria's parents stared in horror as I revealed their daughter's role as architect of an interstate criminal conspiracy. "The drugging is particularly egregious," I continued, showing receipts for anti-anxiety medication and Victoria's journal entries about dosage calculations. 6 months of putting benzodiazepines in my coffee. That's felony poisoning. Victoria's mother swayed, her husband catching her. "Victoria, tell me this isn't true." "It's all lies. He's manipulated these documents, fabricated everything." I clicked to the next evidence, GPS trackers from my car, keylogger screenshots, hacked security camera feeds. Every manipulation tactic documented. Every fraud scheme, every criminal act, every victim. And it's all been submitted to the FBI. The other husbands began their coordinated assault. Marcus played similar evidence on his phone. David projected Ashley's manipulation timeline. One by one, 8 men exposed their wives' participation in Victoria's criminal enterprise. The ballroom descended into chaos. Women screaming denials, men confronting decades of lies, guests recording everything, Victoria's parents collapsing into chairs as their daughter's true nature was revealed before their entire social circle. "The best part," I announced, "is what we found about her parents' money." I displayed financial records showing Victoria had stolen $50,000 from her parents' retirement fund to finance the operation. Account transfers, forged signatures, fabricated investment paperwork. Her father's face went from shock to rage. You stole from us? From your own parents. It was an investment in our future. Victoria screamed, all pretense abandoned. I needed capital to expand the consulting business. You mean systematic abuse, I said. You've been selling manipulation plans for $5,000 each, teaching other women how to drug, surveil, and exploit their husbands. Rebecca's cameras captured everything as Victoria's world imploded. Her friends tried to leave, but Marcus's process servers waited at every exit. Each woman received restraining orders, annulment papers, criminal complaints simultaneously. Ashley's husband threw his wedding ring at her feet. 17 years you've been manipulating me. Victoria's mother turned to her daughter, tears streaming. How could you do this? To Connor, to your own family, to all these people? Because I'm smarter than all of you. Victoria snapped, narcissism fully exposed. I saw inefficient relationships and created a better system. These men were weak, and I made them profitable. The ballroom went silent, everyone staring at Victoria's meltdown. Her carefully constructed mask had shattered, revealing the cold, calculating predator underneath. Her father pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. And our attorney. You'll pay back every cent you stole. You can't do this to me. Victoria shrieked. I'm your daughter. Family protects family. Family doesn't systematically abuse people, her mother said quietly. Family doesn't drug innocent men. Whatever you are, Victoria, you stopped being our daughter the moment you started this nightmare. Marcus stepped forward with legal documents. Victoria Harrison, you're being served with annulment papers based on fraud. Your marriage to Connor Hayes is hereby voided. You're also being served with restraining orders, criminal complaints for fraud, attempted poisoning, stalking, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit interstate crimes. One by one, the 6 core conspirators were served while their husbands filed for emergency divorces. The documentary cameras captured Victoria's complete breakdown, her rage at being exposed, her parents' devastated reaction, the other victims finally understanding they'd been targeted by an organized criminal enterprise. As police arrived and began taking statements, I watched Victoria being escorted out in handcuffs, still screaming about how everyone was wrong, how she'd done nothing illegal. Her parents stood devastated, their 40th anniversary transformed into a crime scene. Rebecca approached me quietly. This is one of the most comprehensive exposures of organized domestic abuse I've ever witnessed. The footage will be instrumental in prosecution and helping other victims. I looked around at 8 men who'd finally learned the truth, who'd discovered they weren't alone, who'd found courage to escape. Good, I said. Let every woman running similar schemes know that documentation beats manipulation, truth beats lies, and justice eventually finds everyone. The annulment was granted within 3 weeks based on fraud, with Victoria ordered to pay restitution and court costs. She was now under FBI investigation for wire fraud related to financial schemes across state lines. The manipulation network completely dissolved as 11 divorces were filed simultaneously, several women facing criminal charges. I started a podcast called Unmasking Manipulation that went viral, reaching 5 million downloads in 2 months. Every episode featured another victim's story, expert analysis of coercive control tactics, practical advice for recognizing and escaping psychological abuse. The response was overwhelming, thousands of messages from people who'd experienced similar manipulation, who finally had language for what happened to them. I reconnected with my ex-girlfriend Emma, who Victoria had destroyed through catfishing. We met for coffee, and I showed her everything: fake profiles Victoria created, manufactured evidence of infidelity, calculated destruction of our relationship. I tried to tell you it wasn't me, Emma said, tears in her eyes. I tried to explain someone was setting me up, but you wouldn't listen. Victoria spent months poisoning my perception, making me paranoid. By the time she manufactured final evidence, I was primed to believe the worst. I'm so sorry. We spent weeks rebuilding trust. carefully reconstructing what Victoria had demolished. Emma had spent 3 years thinking I'd betrayed her. Learning Victoria had orchestrated everything was both validating and devastating. We took things slowly, both damaged by Victoria's manipulation. But there was something powerful about rebuilding together, choosing each other with full knowledge of how we'd been exploited. Victoria attempted one final manipulation claiming pregnancy, but I produced documentation of my vasectomy from 2 years prior. The lie destroyed her credibility completely. Her attorney withdrew from the case, citing ethical concerns about representing someone who'd lied about pregnancy to manipulate legal proceedings. 1 year later, I was writing a book about my experience while 3 of the manipulative women had been criminally convicted. Victoria fled to another state under an assumed name after being convicted of fraud, attempted poisoning, and conspiracy to commit interstate crimes. She was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Ashley received 6 years for conspiracy and insurance fraud. Jennifer, the attorney, was disbarred and sentenced to 5 years for wire fraud. The other 3 accepted plea deals, receiving probation and mandatory psychological treatment in exchange for testifying against Victoria. The other victims, those 47 men we'd identified, had varying outcomes. 15 filed criminal complaints and successfully divorced their manipulative partners. 23 were processing the revelation, working with therapists. 9 refused to believe evidence, choosing to stay in their manipulated relationships rather than confront painful truth. I now run seminars teaching men and women to recognize coercive control patterns, turning my nightmare into a mission to protect others. Emma often joins me, sharing her perspective as someone collaterally damaged by Victoria's schemes. Together, we present comprehensive pictures of how manipulation destroys not just the primary target, but everyone connected to them. My podcast expanded into a documentary series, with Rebecca's footage from the anniversary party exposure as centerpiece. The series won awards for exposing domestic abuse, sparked national conversations about coercive control, led to legislative changes in 3 states regarding psychological manipulation in relationships. Victoria's parents donated the $50,000 she'd stolen, recovered through asset seizure, to organizations supporting domestic abuse victims. They gave interviews about missing warning signs, about how their daughter had hidden her true nature even from family. 2 years after the exposure, Emma and I got engaged, real engagement based on genuine love, full transparency, mutual respect. No manipulation, no hidden agendas, no calculated deception. The proposal happened at the same coffee shop where Victoria had orchestrated our chance first meeting. I wanted to reclaim that space, transform it from location of manipulation into site of genuine connection. My book, The Protocol: How I Survived an Organized Relationship Conspiracy, became a bestseller, with proceeds going to domestic abuse organizations and legal funds for other victims. Speaking events took me across the country, where I met countless people who'd experienced similar abuse. "You're never alone," I told them. "These predators want you to feel isolated." But manipulation follows patterns, and recognizing those patterns is the first step toward freedom. Victoria made one attempt to contact me from prison, a letter that somehow bypassed the restraining order. "You destroyed my life. I could have made you happy if you just trusted the protocol. Instead, you've made me a monster when I was only trying to optimize partnership dynamics." I didn't respond. I forwarded the letter to the FBI as evidence of continued narcissistic behavior and lack of remorse. The letter extended her sentence when the judge considered it during her appeal hearing. 3 years after the exposure, Emma and I got married in a simple ceremony surrounded by people who genuinely loved us. Marcus was my best man, Rebecca documented the day, and 8 men who'd found freedom because of the exposure attended to celebrate genuine partnership. To Connor, Marcus toasted, who proved that intelligence, documentation, and courage can defeat even the most sophisticated manipulation. And to Emma, who proved that real love survives even the most calculated destruction. I looked around at the celebration, real joy, genuine connection, authentic relationships, and realized Victoria had ultimately failed completely. She tried to destroy me, to break me, to remake me into a compliant subject. Instead, she'd created someone stronger, someone dedicated to exposing manipulation, someone who'd turned her criminal conspiracy into a catalyst for protecting others. Think she regrets it? Emma asked later. I thought about Victoria's letter, her complete lack of remorse, her continued belief she'd been right. No, I said. People like Victoria don't experience regret. They experience anger at being caught. But actual remorse? That requires empathy they don't possess. Then she's still in prison, Emma observed. Even if she gets out someday, she's trapped in her own narcissism. That's its own life sentence. She was right. Victoria would spend the rest of her life as prisoner of her personality disorder, unable to experience real love or genuine connection. Meanwhile, I was free from manipulation, from deception, from psychological warfare. To freedom, I said, raising my glass to Emma, to our real love, to the life we'd built from ashes of Victoria's failed manipulation.